Well, yeah, go ahead and give it up for the band. Good morning, good morning, good morning. Go ahead and grab a seat. My name is Ryan. I'm the pastor here. It's a pleasure just to be able to welcome you to our church. I got to have off last week, and so if you came last week and you were like, man, it was amazing. That guy was wonderful. He preached the doors off the church. He'll be preaching again soon, but he's not preaching this week. Real quick on Joe, I want to let you know one thing. You guys, a lot of people sent me text messages last week, and I love this. My family was on a cruise, and we had a good time, and I'll talk about it a little bit in this message. But so many of you on Sunday sent me text messages. Joe killed it. Joe nailed it. You need to have him preach again. He should preach more than you. Please stop preaching at our church. Let Joe just preach. He's better. Some of that was not there, and some of it was offensive, but in any case, so many of you texted me last week and let me know, and I got here this morning and I was Joe, how did it go last week? And he's like, it was good. I felt like I did well. I felt like, and he kind of recapped a little bit of it, and I said, did people give you any feedback? And he's like, well, I had one conversation with one person. And I'm like, dang it. All of you sent me text and nobody told him. All right, so one of the things I want to encourage you to do, not only let me know, I want to know when you guys think somebody preaches really well, we want to have them back here, and we want our stage to be a blessing to you, but also let that speaker know, because he's pouring himself into it. He works 40 hours a week, if not more, and then he pours a lot of energy into what he does to be a blessing to you all and to prepare for what God's calling him to. And we're excited about that, and we're excited to be a part of it. But if you're just joining us, we're in the middle of a series called Red Letter Prayers. And the reason it's called Red Letter Prayers is because if you start reading the Bible, and if you don't start in Genesis, if you start in what we know as the New Testament, so like the story of the life of Christ and then after, what you'll see in many translations of Scripture is that the words of Jesus are written in red letters. And it's just to distinguish. And I have a friend who started reading the Bible, and he went back and he started in Genesis, and he's reading, and a couple days later I saw him and I said, how's your Bible reading going? He said, I'm really frustrated. I said, why? He said, I'm all the way to Numbers. So he's read like 4 books of the Bible. And I said, okay. He said, I've not got to any red letters yet. And I was like, well, you're just started in the wrong place. Don't start there. Start in John and you'll be in red letters right away. But in any case, the words of Jesus are written in red in many translations because we believe that they're valuable. Not that they're necessarily more important, but it's the words of the God on earth. And so we want to pay attention to what he says, and we want to distinguish it. And so red letter prayers is this idea of we're going to look at some prayers that Jesus prays, or some ways that Jesus teaches us how to pray so that we can learn to pray like Jesus. And so in week 1, 2 weeks ago, we spent some time talking about the disciples who are following around Jesus, and they observed Jesus, right? They had grown up around synagogues. They had grown up praying. They had grown up experiencing these things on their own. And they had definitely prayed before. They had definitely seen religious leaders pray before. But there was something about the way when Jesus prayed that they said this. They said, Jesus, will you teach us to pray? It's not that we think we're necessarily doing it wrong, but we're definitely not doing it like you are. And there's some things that we think we can learn. And so will you teach us to pray? And I said the really offensive thing that week, that maybe many of us don't feel like our prayers are that effective because maybe we don't know how to pray. Maybe it's that you and I have never really learned to pray. We've just always approached it casually, like prayer is just talking to God. And some church told us that, and some youth ministry is to blame, and that's okay. And I was not a great youth pastor because I told plenty of kids that too. But in any case, maybe the reason many of us feel like prayer is ineffective at times is because we don't really know what we're doing when it comes to prayer. And so we looked at Jesus teaching his disciples how to pray. And then last week, Joe taught, and we looked at Jesus, an example of just Jesus praying. It wasn't so much Jesus saying, let me teach you. It was Jesus saying, let me show you how to pray. And it's this dark and gloomy prayer, but it's Jesus in the garden. Just before he's about to die, he knows what's ahead of him, his arrest and his crucifixion and ultimately his resurrection. But there is a lot of pain ahead of him in his very, very near future. And we see him praying in the garden. And we learn how to pray in the midst of our struggle and in the midst of our trials and our frustration. And if you missed either one of those messages, I just encourage you to go back, listen to our podcast. If you prefer to watch them, you can get them on video on our website. You can check all that out. It's really simple if you're not confused about how to use a website. If you are confused about how to use a website, welcome to 2018. I don't know. elementchurchlaurel.com. You probably can ask Jeeves. He'll tell you how to get there. That'd be a good way to check that out. In any case, so we looked at Jesus teaching us to pray. We've looked at Jesus showing us how to pray. This week, we're going to look at one more prayer of Jesus where Jesus prays for us. And you go, how did Jesus know my name? He doesn't pray for you by name, but he does pray for us. And starts this way in John 17. He says, I'm praying not only for these disciples, that's his 12 that are following, but also for all who will ever believe in me through their message. So you are included in this prayer. Now, we're not going to get to what he prays for us yet, because what he prays for us is a bit too ridiculous and a bit too just out there, and I don't really want to talk about it that much. So before we get to that, we'll ask this question. What's your biggest pet peeve? Like, what bothers you the most? For me, it's bad drivers. And I don't mean like bad drivers like people who are incapable of driving. Like student drivers are excused from this, all right? Somebody should be teaching them. That's okay. I can be patient with them. What bothers me is that when I pull out of the library on 7th Street in Laurel, I'm sitting in a light to go straight. The car across from me has his left blinker on. Like he's going to turn after I go through the light because I have the right of way. But as soon as the light turns green, he decides he's going to like speed through the intersection. So instead of me being able to go through the intersection when I have the right to go through the intersection, he's now turning in front of me. This happened the other day. He almost hit somebody walking through the intersection because he was trying so desperately to beat me because it was about him and not about me. And I couldn't get through, and I had to wait, and I was frustrated. Bad drivers frustrate me. Bad drivers frustrate me when they tailgate me, and I'm doing 80. Bad drivers frustrate me when they speed around me and slam on their brakes to prove some point. Bad drivers get on my nerves all the time. I'll tell you another thing that really gets to me. This one really gets to Kim, but it really bothers me as well. We'll go to Walmart every now and then, or we'll go to the mall, or we'll go somewhere like that, and you walk out of a store, and there's like a door that opens when you walk out of that store, and then there's like a long amount of sidewalk that you could go stand and find your car if you want to. But the tendency is that people will walk out of that door, and if this is the door, they walk out of the door and they stop right here. I'm right behind them. I now can't get out of the door. And they're just standing there, and they're looking around this massive parking lot as if they're going to be able to spot their car from a mile away when they can't remember where they even parked in general. And all I want to do is ram the back of their legs with my cart. Pray for me. All right? But here's why. Because it's not about me. And that bothers me. I hate when people don't live their life the way that I would prefer. And with this is like in relationships. You guys get this. Francis and Savannah are newlyweds, and I'm sure they've learned in the past 2 or 3 weeks of being married that there are some preferences and there are some times when the other person doesn't see it the way that they see it, which is obviously wrong. And if you've been married for any period of time longer than that, or if you've ever had a relationship with anyone, you've realized there are moments where people don't see things the way I see things, and clearly they're wrong. I know. But like we can disagree about so much. I mean, simple things like the toilet paper and the way it should go on the roll, which is obviously over. If you don't think the toilet paper goes over, we'll pray for you, but Ellen, it's probably not your church, all right? I'm sorry. I don't understand how you see that it should go under. That just makes no sense. But there's a lot of things that like we can disagree about, and we can disagree over, and if people would just see it our way, my way, then the whole world would be a lot better because, or at least my world would be a lot better because it's now about me. And see, this idea of me is really what we're going to get into this morning. Not me like Ryan, your pastor, but like me, or you, me, or like us, me, like the idea of me-ness. Like this is where the phrase works, right? Like you could turn to the person next to you and say, it's not you, it's me. Let's try that. Like just turn to the person next to you or somebody around you, say, it's not you, it's me. Okay, you guys are pitiful at doing this. Let's try this again. Eric has nobody, all right? But it's not you, it's me. Let's try it. Right? Like you could say it to the person next to you, like, now this time it has a lot less emotion than last time you said it or last time you heard it. There's probably tears or other things attached to it last time. Like now it's like, oh, it's funny. It's not you, it's me. But that really is what it is. It's me. It's your version of me. It's my version of me. It's the way that me wants to live my life. And if you fit into that, then great. And if you don't, then it's just going to be frustrating for me. And see, Jesus prays this prayer, and it's ridiculous because he's praying to God, and he starts the prayer in John 17. And I challenge you this week to go read John 17. It's this long prayer of Jesus, but he starts it by saying, God, I'm about to come to you. It's almost time for me to be in heaven with you. It's almost time for me to leave this earth and to leave these people, and I've poured into them, and I've cared for them, and I've loved them, and I'm passionate about them. And God, the one thing I want to pray for them, I pray that you would protect them, and I pray that they will all be one, as you and I are one. As you are in me, Father, and I am in you, and that may they be in us, so that the world may believe that you sent me. See, he says, I pray that they will all be one. I pray that those who are following you, God, I pray that they be unified. I pray that they would be we instead of me. And then in case we're confused, he says, just as you and I are one. Like, God, you remember how, like, I'm your son and you're my father, and, like, we are deeply connected, and, like, I pray to you and I know you're going to answer, and, like, we're on the same page, and, like, I came from heaven with you, and I'm down here and I'm going to return to you. And you know how, like, you and I, like are one, like, we are together, we are completely connected. There is no confusion, there is no disconnect, there is no distortion. We know each other intimately and completely, and there is nothing in between us. You know that, God, you know how close you and I are. Yeah, I pray that that would be my church. I pray that you would be with my people who are known by my name, that you'd protect them and help them to be we instead of me. And then he gives us the reason. He said, may they be one, may they be in us, so that the world will believe that you sent me. And Jesus, just before this in this prayer, says, this is the gospel, that they would know that you're the one true God, and they would know that I'm your son that you sent. That heaven is possible, that hope for eternity is real, if people would know that you are the one true God, not their money, not their time, not sex, not fun, not some other religion, but that they would believe in you, that you're the one true God, and that they'd know that you sent me. And Jesus says, if my people can get the idea of we over me, then the whole world would be able to see this. And the only problem with that is that me still exists. I have a mirror somewhere. Well, I have a mirror over here, but that's going to be for later. I have this mirror that my wife uses in the car. Now, I don't have one of these mirrors in my car. If you're a parent, you know what this mirror is. It's like the mirror that's there that you put on, like, the back of your child's seat so that you can see your child from the front seat when you look in your mirror. This, to me, is a death trap. All right? I'm way too distracted of a driver already. I don't need, like, if my son's crying, to be able to see exactly why he's crying or to be able to smile at him. Like, I don't care if he's smiling. I need to get him there safely. And if this was in my car, I'd see him smiling right into the back of another car. Like, that's the way that would work for me. But Kim has this in her car. She loves this thing. Like, except that it doesn't strap onto the back of the headrest well, but she puts it in her car and she gets it lined up and we play with it all the time, and, like, it makes sense. And then she drives, and when Noah, like, whines or fusses or cries or whatever, she knows exactly what's going on, and she's able to fix it and she's able to address it, and, like, she just smiles at him, and then she drives and pays attention, and every red light she's looking back at him, and I'm like, it's not about me anymore, and this bothers me. But in any case, she loves this thing. And then, like, Noah likes it too, and, like, friends of ours have told us, like, if you just get a baby a mirror, they will love to stare at themselves. They love to look at me. Like, that's what they want to do. And so, like, Noah does that. Like, you put him, he may not be smiling at other people, but you put him in front of a mirror and he smiles like crazy. Like, my mom always wants to know why he smiles on FaceTime, and the reason is because he's just been staring at a picture of himself. And, like, he enjoys that, and he enjoys looking at himself. And so, like, we love this mirror, but this mirror is a way to, like, know what's going on with him, and a way for him to know what's going on with us, and a way for him to see himself. And so, like, we love the idea of me. And I don't think it's really that confusing. Like, we talked about this in week 1 when Jesus teaches us to pray, and he says, listen, when you pray, don't start with me. Remember, we said don't start off asking. Because the way that we love to pray is like, oh, dear God, thank you for the day. Now, let me tell you all the things that are going on in my life that I need you to fix. And we said that the way Jesus models for us to pray is that we don't start off asking, but that we start off praising. We declare God's greatness. And when we get to the end, then we can acknowledge our need for him and our dependence on him. But that we start with him, and see, our tendency is to start with me. And so as Jesus teaches us to pray, and as Jesus models for us how to pray, and then even as Jesus prays for us, he says, I pray that they would be one, just as you and I are one. And the only problem with that is that we're all a group of me. And I know I'm using these words, me and we, a lot, but like, think about it for a moment. Do you know how many denominations there are within Christianity? I did some research. 41,000. 41,000 different denominations that disagree about something. And I'm not too big on denominational things, and denominational life isn't really like my message, and it's not really the thing that I want to preach about. But my dad grew up in the South, and there's a lot of like First Baptist churches when you pull into Bristol. And then right down the road from there is Second Baptist Church, which is, we got upset that the carpet color wasn't the way that we wanted it to be, so we went and started our own church. And then there's Third Baptist Church, which is Second Baptist Church let in people that we didn't think were fit to be in the church, and they weren't dressed the right way. And so we got Third Baptist Church, and there's literally Fourth Baptist Church. That is, they played the music too loud over there in Third Baptist Church. And so we left there, and we're doing our own thing. Denominations have split over small things like that often. 41,000 different, not churches, denominations, groups of churches. And I'm all for diversity, and I'm all for individuality, and I'm all for like being able to like have your own philosophies, but there's something significant about what Jesus prayed. So he prayed that we would be one. And he says that if we can be one, then the world will believe that he sent us. It's almost like this. It's like Jesus is praying this. He says, God, if they can be one, if they can be whole, if they can be together, then they can reflect us into humanity so that all humanity can know us and know salvation. It's like we become like this mirror that's angled to where when people see us, what they actually see is Jesus. And they can have hope. And they can have faith. And they can experience something greater. He says, I pray that they will be one so that the whole world will believe that you sent me. So God, help them be unified so that they can be together, so that they can fulfill their purpose, so that all of humanity can see us. And that's great. And that would work. But the greatest opponent of we is me. So I've got something to help us understand that a little bit more. This is a softball. It actually has my name on it, and I'm not sure why. So it'll represent me, but it's really just a big ball of me. And over there we have a nice mirror, and this mirror represents what we're called to be, what Jesus prayed for us, that we would be unified, that we would have a singular focus, that we would understand that he is the Son of God and that God sent him and that God is the one true God and that there's no confusion, no distortion, no distinction, that we can just be aligned with him and that the world, when they see us, would see not just themselves, but they would see him. And they would understand that because of the way we love one another, that people know that we're connected with God. And it models something that's actually desirable. But the problem is that we get involved. And so I'm praying currently as I'm speaking, which is a little weird, but I do it often, that I don't first pitch this like 50 Cent or like some of the other people that, you guys ever watch those videos of bad first pitches? Where they can't, they get booed off the field just like they should get booed off the field because they can't throw at the home plate. So I'm hoping I hit this mirror. But see, the problem is like you have we, and we can live exactly like we is supposed to live when we is unified and connected. But the problem is, I missed. The problem is me gets involved. And when me gets involved, I want you to understand this. It's not just disunity. It's not just brokenness that's the result. It's we can no longer fulfill our purpose. There's something so much greater than just some jagged edges. Now, listen, a lot of us gave up on church a long time ago because we've been jabbed with these jagged edges. Because we've been part of those churches. Because we've been part of that movement that says we're singularly focused, but you're not welcome. We've seen this happen. I lived in a church and I grew up in a church that argued over carpet color. I literally remember somebody painting the walls yellow, but it was too yellow, so we had to repaint the walls yellow. And people left over that. Some people left because they thought it was bad stewardship. Other people left because it was too warm in there and they're used to icy cold. I prefer my church to look like a medical facility that's not really that welcoming. But see, we do me gets involved in this and it distorts everything. And the problem is when that happens, it's not just that we don't have the joy of unity, which we do miss out on. It's that we no longer are able to accomplish our purpose of being one so that God can be seen by everyone. And see, so Jesus, knowing us, and knowing the temptations that we'd have, and knowing the frustrations that we deal with, and knowing the ways that we would approach things, comes in and says, God, before I leave, I want to make one thing clear. I want to just pray for my people. And he actually says in the prayer just before this, he says, I pray that you would protect them. I pray that you would guard them. That they would be one, as you and I are one. So I want to be clear about something. If you're new to Element, or maybe you've been here for a while, I want to be clear about what we're about here at Element. Because we are committed to being one. And it's not around political views, because I could care less what you think politically. It's not around racial preference, because we don't really have a whole lot of that. It's not around socioeconomic status, because that's not my thing either. Everybody's welcome here. I'll tell you one thing I'm praying for, and I don't know how we're going to pull it off. Each quarter, we're connecting with a local missions partner. This quarter, it's the school, and so for every second-time guest, we donate $5 to the school just to be a benefit to the school and bless them. We're doing an Easter egg hunt here on Easter. We're going to be collecting tissue boxes. We've already been collecting tissue boxes. We've already donated over 150 tissue boxes to the school and dry erase markers and made a difference, and they're already being blessed by us, and we're excited about that. But our partner for the last quarter of the year is our homeless population in Laurel. I care about them, and I'm heartbroken for them in so many ways, but we're going to be partnering with Lars. We're going to be partnering with the Elizabeth House, and we just want to bless them. We want to give them blankets. We want to give them socks. We want to give them basic necessities that just help meet needs and are a blessing. But I don't know how we're going to pull this off, but one of my prayers over the past couple months has been that we would be able to do a Sunday that just honors the homeless in our community. 632 people live without a home in the city of Laurel. That's just the city. That's not the whole county. That's not the whole area. That's not even all of the zip codes that would include Laurel. That's just the city of Laurel. And I don't know how to do it. I don't know how to create space, but I want to give as many front row seats to the people in our community that are dismissed more than anybody else. We want to create space. We want to open our doors. We want to welcome them in. I couldn't care less about socioeconomic status. This church is not built on what I can get out of it. This church is not built on what you can bring to the table. This church is built on a group of people coming together, focused on one mission, and that's connecting people to Jesus one step at a time. From wherever you are to whatever's next, we want to connect you to Jesus one step at a time. And so we've said this before, we want to be a hospital for those who are hurting, and we do want to be a hospital for those who are hurting. But we also want to be a hotel and a place of retreat for those who need that. A place of rest and refuge. A place to be restored and healed. We want to be a place that provides help to our community. And we can disagree about how to get there, and we can discuss what we're doing. And I'll be honest, there's a lot of times where I'll sit down with you guys and people will email me or talk to me or suggest things, and I am always open to suggestion about how to do this thing better, because I'll be honest, I don't know what I'm doing most days. But at the end of the day, we're committed to helping our world know more about who God is and that his son was sent so that we could have hope. And if you want to discuss with me how we can let more of the community know or how we can let more of our area know, then I want to talk to you about it, and I want to have conversations with you about it. And I'm going to ask you the offensive question and the upfront question of, who are you inviting? Because if you're not inviting anybody, then don't tell me how to invite people. I want to know that you're owning it and that you're doing it. What I'd rather do is figure out who's really inviting people extremely well and then pour gas on their fire and just help that go crazy. But when people sit down with me and we meet and we discuss things, I will discuss just about anything that has to do with Element, as long as it's about how to reach more people. What I'll never discuss is the preferences of me. And when the conversation begins to shift from how can we reach more, how can we see more, how can we join in with the mission of God more, and it becomes more about, well, my last church didn't do it this way, I quickly shut down the conversation. I don't have any desire for that. I have zero passion to talk about what your last church did. Unless it's going to help us reach more people, it doesn't matter. I'll tell you something else will change, the way we worship. Because if a guitar and a bass and a set of drums works really well, then great, let's do it every single week. But if it doesn't work well and we got to go back to some hymns to somehow reach our community more, I don't know how it's going to work, but I'm willing to try it. Because we're not committed to a music style. We're not committed to a way we set up lights. We're not committed to pipe and drape. It's kind of annoying to set up. We're committed to reach people with the gospel. We're committed to being one, just as God and his son are one. And that's not around style. And that's not around preference. And that's not around dress code. That's around connecting people to Jesus one step at a time. And that's it. And if that's something you want to be about, I want you to be part of Element. And if being we is something that intrigues you, welcome. But let me be real clear. If you're here and it's going to be about me, you're not welcome here. We're not going to do it. That's not the battle we're going to have. That's pride that you're dealing with, and you need to repent, and Jesus can work on that in you, but I will not be patient with your pride. We want to see people follow Jesus, and we want to see our community connected to him more than we ever have before. And the one thing that Jesus says, is the one thing that he prays for us, is that we would be one, just as he and the Father are one. And so if you're willing to be committed to we over me, you're welcome. We're glad to have you. Let's go change the city forever. But if you're a person that says it's got to be about me, we're not your church. We love you. We care for you. We'll pray for you. But Element's not home. And I don't mean that in a bad way. I want you to be in a place where you can have your needs met, but it will not be about me here. And I want to be real clear about this too. It's not about me, and now I am talking about Ryan. I'm called to be leader. I'm not called to be the smartest person in the room. I'm called to be pastor and to care and to shepherd and to guide, not to have all my preferences met. There are songs that the band sings that I prefer we didn't sing. There are series that we preach that I don't even prefer that we preach on that topic at times. There are things that we do and the ways we set up lights and the things that happen in kids ministry that are effective and are doing their job and are accomplishing their task, but are not my preference. But Kim and I, just as much as Liz and Eric, just as much as the rest of the volunteers who helped start Element, just as much as the other volunteers who are part of it, we're committed to lay our preferences aside and to be united as one. so that our whole city, so that our whole world can see Jesus and know that they can have hope. If that's you this morning, if you're a person who came in and said, hey, I need hope. I need bread for the hungry. I need water to restore my soul. We're glad that you're here and we're glad that you're a part. I want to specifically invite you to our Wounded series. It starts in 3 Sundays. Next week, we're going to be wrapping up this series on prayer by looking at a prayer that Jesus evaluates. It's actually 2 other guys praying, and Jesus steps in and he looks at the way that the 2 people pray and he gives some commentary on it, and we can gain a lot from it. Next week, I really want to encourage you to be here. I'm not just trying to tell you come every week, but come every week. In any case, next week, we have somebody who's made a decision to follow Christ, and we're going to be celebrating it. We're going to be baptizing her, and we're really, really excited about that, and can't wait to see that happen. And then on Easter, we're going to be doing an Easter egg hunt so that we can reach more of our community, because more people will come to an invite on Easter than any other time of the year. And so I want to encourage you to invite your friends to Easter, but we're going to get them here for Easter. We're going to do an Easter egg hunt, and we're going to invite them back for April 8th. And that's when we kick off Wounded. And I just want to give you guys, because so many of you are Element regulars, I want to give you a little bit of a preview of what that series is going to be. It's not going to be funny. It's not going to be light. It's going to be heavy, but it's going to be bread for people who are hungry. It's going to be water for souls that need to be restored. It's going to take a deep, deep dive into the brokenness that is within us so that we can actually find healing, because I'm convinced that so much of our community is stitching over and band-aiding over infected wounds that are just eating them alive from the inside out. I went on a trip this week with my family, and I see it. In my mom, in my cousins, in every part of my family, the ways that we just continue to build wall after wall after wall to protect the vulnerable wounds in our heart. And the problem is, when we've done that, we've chosen to guard something even from God of the universe who can actually bring healing. And I want this series, and I'm praying desperately that April 8th would begin to be healing for so many people. We're doing the Easter egg hunt on April 1st with the hope of having more people here on April 8th than we've ever had before in a service. But there's somebody in your mind, there's somebody in your life that you know needs hope, that you know needs restored, that you know needs nourished in a way that they've not been nourished before. This series will not be some feel-good, pat you on the head, tell you it's all going to be okay, and good luck with your cancer. That's not what we're doing. We're going to actually begin to dive deep into the woundedness that we all feel and discover a way to bring healing to our brokenness. And I want you to be a part of it, but I want you to bring your friends to be a part of it as well. Your family, your coworker, the people you know need hope and need healing. That's who that series is for, and I want to encourage you to bring them to be a part of it. But guys, I want to just challenge you this morning with this. Are you more committed to me or to we? Because me has a lot of preferences, and I get it. I have all kinds of preferences. All kinds of ways that I think it should be done, and my way would be best, and if people would just listen, then they would get it too. But Jesus said, if everybody's actually going to know, if the world will actually see the Father and understand that He sent His Son, if the world will experience truth and grace and hope, it won't happen because you did me really well. It'll happen because you were committed to we. So as we get ready to close, we're going to take communion. A couple people are going to bring it forward, and the reason we take communion is it's a reminder that Jesus was more committed to we than He was me. Jesus came in and went to the cross and paid a sacrifice so that we could have hope, so that we could be unified, so that it wouldn't be just about us. And He provided a way for that to make that happen. And communion is just a reminder of that. So there's 2 cups there. One of them has juice. The one underneath it has a cracker. It's a symbol of Jesus' blood and Jesus' body, and I encourage you to take it kind of as you get it. You don't need to wait for me to lead you through it. We're not going to do that, but you guys can just take that as you get it, and it's that reminder that we can have hope because he came. That we can actually be we instead of me because of his sacrifice. We're doing something that the local church has been doing for thousands of years. As we study a prayer that Jesus prayed for us thousands of years ago. But as we close, I just want to encourage you to pray with me. God, I pray a really simple prayer this morning. God, help us to be one. You modeled perfection. You modeled unity better than anyone in all of humanity. But God, I pray that you'd help us at Element. I pray that you'd be with the churches in Laurel. I pray that you'd be with the churches in Maryland. God, I pray that you be with the churches in our nation and around the world. Help us to be one as you and the Father are one. But God, help us here in our little corner of the world. Help us to be committed to unity and committed to we far more than we're committed to me. Because it's so easy to be focused on my preference. But God, help us to lay down our preferences to see you glorified. And help us to be a mirror that reflects you to humanity. It's in your name I pray. Amen.